Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session we are going to be going over Mercy Res, the old Mass Res that she used to have, sort of comparing it to Valkyrie, but really asking the question, would it be any good today? We had some discussion happening in the Discord, which you can join in the description below, about whether her mass res was ridiculous, whether it was silly, and I think most people would agree that it was perhaps silly from a design perspective to go, hey, we're going to have someone who goes and plays hide and seek as a hero, who goes, hey, I'm here, I exist, I'm going to hide from the fight, then I'm going to swoop back in and try to res people. That conceptually was probably a silly design. It probably felt bad to have people actually get eliminated and then come back to life in mass like that. That probably was poor from a it doesn't feel good standpoint. Some amount of it doesn't feel good is necessary in a game, by the way. If you don't have any defense matrix, if you don't have any form of res, if you don't have any form of CC, you do run into a game that, okay, well, mobility quickly becomes quite powerful. A raw offensive power becomes quite powerful. For the type of game Blizzard was trying to design, some things that don't feel good were probably necessary, but that one was probably a step too far. But what some people will take the stance of is, oh, it was too powerful. It resurrected 5 people after you've used Grav Dragon on them, after you've used Earth Shatter plus Barrage on them. You've used a bunch of ults on them, and then it just all comes in and gets undone. And I take issue with that. That's just simply not the case. It's really not too powerful. It would be considered a very weak ult in modern Overwatch if it still existed. And I'm going to sort of walk you guys through how. And to start with here, we're going to go into some examples. Actually, you know what? Let's start with the timeline. Let's start with our timeline of when it happened. So we have these. We see that we have changes that have been cataloged here. Got this. Okay, resurrect, resurrect, resurrect. This is all when it's resurrect. And then it changed over to Valkyrie on September 19th, 2017. So that's when Valkyrie got changed into the ultimate. Before that, we were looking at, hey, Mercy is going to be able to do reses. We did have a window where, while performing Resurrect, Mercy was invulnerable as long, along with the allies being revived. And this certainly made it more powerful. It made it so it was harder to just insta-delete her while she was resing, because I can guarantee you in modern Overwatch, where everyone's mechanics, silver players, gold players, bronze players, plat players, everyone's mechanics are better than they were in 2016 and 2017. Maybe that's not true at the very, very bottom of bronze, but what you're looking at is the average Overwatch player has gotten much better. That's why the average, the average diamond today, the average diamond from the original season might be in gold today. The average GM might be in diamond today. We won't know exactly what. It depends exactly what their skills were specifically built out of as a player. But without this, there would be absolutely no question, that Mass Resurrect would just be a pretty bad ultimate in the modern era. Like, okay, a Mercy is going to conceptually go hide. She's not invincible while resing, so she gets eliminated. She shows up. It's so easy to stop with, oh, you're going to get slept when you go for the Resurrect. Oh, you are going to get headshot when you go for the resurrect. You're going to get hooked out of this when you go for the resurrect. Like, all of these things would be incredibly, incredibly easy to shut down. Oh, tracers now know that they don't waste their whole clip on you while you're flying in. They eliminate you while you're actually doing the resurrect animation. Without this, it would be over. But anyways, that was the timeline. Now we're going to go through some examples here. So looking at what we see here, I've laid out a couple examples here of reasonable matchups. So this here we have on red team. Red team is consistently going to have our Mercy. And for red team here, we have set up a dive comp. And we've set up a pretty divey comp. This is something that you could see in the modern era, where they have themselves a Hammond, a Tracer, a Mercy, an Echo, a Sigma, and a Zen, and they're playing into another dive comp. And for the sake of the example, I've gone ahead and made a slight difference of, obviously I put Mercy on red team, I did not put a Mercy on blue team, and then I went ahead and gave blue team a Sombra while red team got their Echo here. Doesn't really matter, the Echo actually just makes the Mercy a bit better, and I'm going to pretend that Mercy is able to contribute to this fight, and she's not actually hiding. because at higher levels, once you got past sort of the mid levels, Mercies didn't really hide for mass res, because even back then in 2017, they understood it didn't really work and that tempo reses were generally better. You could not go for these mass 5-man reses. So here we are. If we're going at this concept of a mass res, we're going to pretend that Mercy can contribute. Even while that's happening, let's say we get any sort of trap play, any sort of lane gets won. As you can see in a dive comp versus dive comp like this, usually it would be a battle over the lanes. We've got a battle going on over here. We have, okay, we've got Ball plus Sombra fighting Ball over here for this lane. We have Tracers first Tracer happening in the cave down below. And then we have this lane here that's being fought over by our core of Zenbrig Sigma over here versus a core of Zen Sigma Echo Mercy here. And we're pretending Mercy isn't hiding. Great, fine. Maybe this core loses the battle to these guys, this combo here, and that's not great. Maybe that happens. Or maybe this Ball loses the battle over here and actually gets eliminated, isn't able to get out because there's a Sombra in play. Well, as soon as this Ball gets eliminated, we're kind of stuck. We're kind of stuck as red team with a Mercy of going, well, do I use mass res to just bring up Ball? If I don't, Ball's all the way back here in spawn. So do I do that to bring up just Ball? This is a highly mobile team I'm playing against, which can quite possibly punish the res. Even if you get an invincibility animation, they can either punish the res on the way in, or they can pretty easily take the Mercy down on the way out. One of the two. That's going to be a real problem. This is a hyper-mobile team that we're playing against, and we're certainly not getting a mass res in that situation. So if we're getting only a single res, even if we get the single res and get out alive, that's definitely not as good as Valkyrie. And Valkyrie's a mid-tier support ult. It's not as strong as Transcendence. It's not as strong as Beat. It's not as strong as Rally. You could argue maybe it should go up in tier because it'll charge faster than a Beat in terms of its total value in a match. But it would generally be weaker than the actual active effect of those ults. And would we want to trade out Valk for mass res that's only going to be used to get one person here? No. Well, okay, what about the other scenario? What about the scenario where the dive actually goes through? Where, hey, the dive happens, maybe red won all these battles, or blue won all these battles, so let's push red back a little. Red gets pushed back a little. And they sort of end up collapsed. I don't know, let's just put them on the street because it's easier for the example. But conceptually what happens in Dive v Dive is teams take control. One team wins enough of the lane battles to really get control. And now they can actually dive on the target they want. Might be the Zen, might be the Sigma, might be something like that. And now this dive is going to come in from 3 different directions. And it's probably going to be successful because it's coming in from 3 different directions. Red team is not able to successfully mess it up, hurt the Tracer enough on their way in, hurt the Ball enough on their way in to make the dive unsuccessful because, again, these guys won their lanes. Well, even if these guys lose, get eliminated, whatever, and Mercy hits her res and she's invincible during the res, okay, maybe that happens, and congrats, you guys are now all resed in this tight little space that you had to be close enough to each other to get resed. If you pop res, it's not going to res a Tracer over here. It's not going to res a Ball over here. So for you guys to get resed by mass res, you had to be in a situation where blue team you'd been forced into a tight situation like this, and blue team already had their kill box on you. That's not a good thing to res into. Yeah, it could work but we traded a couple people out, but if you didn't trade anyone out, there's just going to be a situation of, well, they reset their kill box while you're rezzing, and then they do the exact same thing again, and it's going to have the same outcome. It really is. Yeah, there's some cooldown things that happen, but if they've retaken these positions, it's going to be very hard to break out of this. Or, you eliminated our Sombra, or you eliminated our Brig, or maybe you eliminated our Brig and our Zen. That's probably too much, but let's pretend that you did that. Yeah, that's cool. We're going to drop Minefield as your rezzing. We're going to Flux because you're all grouped together for the res. We're going to EMP because you're all grouped together for the res. And we'll just farm you again, and we will get all of that juicy ult charge again. Yes, we used a big ult, but we used a big ult to get the eliminations. We get most of the ult charge back, not to the person who used the ult, but on the team, because your positioning sucks. Your positioning absolutely sucks if you're able to have a mass res hit most people. And if you did what's more realistic, because I made an exception here and let the Mercy participate in the fight but still somehow get the res, and your Mercy is missing, Well, that makes it even more likely that blue actually won their fights over the lanes, so it made this situation more likely. And let's be honest, now we're in a situation where blue is able to turn their man advantage into a positional advantage. And then they still have now not just positional, not just man advantage. Now they have man advantage and positional advantage for the actual fight that happens. This isn't good. This isn't good like, yes, now we came and rezzed you. Oh, okay, but like it was almost a foregone conclusion that we were going to win this fight in the first place. So you guys set yourself up to lose so you could use your ult so that you could have another chance at losing. I mean, you're not really thinking that. You're thinking you're going to trade out one or two of their people, but clean dives don't always lose one or two people. So that's not really good. And to be fair, we can run this simulation. It's not quite a simulation, but we'll call it that, on other compositions, but it's really not going to get much better. And chat, I'm not ignoring you. I will catch up in just a little bit here. So if you want to tell me I'm wrong, that I'm not being fair to it, or point out holes in the examples that I'm using, absolutely feel free to do so. Or if you're watching this in the future, feel free to leave a comment doing so. I can't promise I'll respond to every comment, but I'll take a look at them. Okay, so now let's put blue team on brawl, red team is set up on a poke composition. And we just did this on a dive composition with a little bit of a poke hybrid in order to make Mercy sort of make sense. We gave them an Echo, but Echo can also dive pretty hard. We gave them a Zen, that makes sense with Mercy. Okay, that's what we did. Now we can do this poke composition. This is what Mercy likes. Mercy as a support likes to enable poke. That does well for her. She can reverse early picks in poke v poke. She boosts poke heroes. Poke works pretty well for her. Well, this is going to happen, and these teams might rotate and rotate away and do whatever they're going to, but ultimately what's going to happen, whether it's the Brawl team running someone down here, or the Brawl team running someone down here, or the Brawl team running someone down over here, 3 rotations later, whatever, unless the Poke team wins and picks this team apart before they get to someone that they can Brawl at, in which case the Mercy is mostly irrelevant. The Mercy is nice for the damage boost, but the res isn't becoming relevant. Unless that happens, we're going to end up in a situation where the Brawl team takes out some portion of the Poke Aspects team, which did spread out and take angles. They're not going to stack. They will get crushed if they stack. They have to threaten from multiple angles. These guys are now off the board, waiting to be rezzed, and Mercy can't go res them. If Mercy tries to fly in here, invincibility or not, her and the 2 people that get rezzed, or just her, because she might not even make it in, are simply going to get destroyed. Because what a Brawl team does when it's fighting Poke is it goes over, it runs over, and it beats up on a spot, and then it probably needs to stabilize, recover its resources, its Rhine Shields, its May Walls, its Defense Matrix, maybe get its Amp back, something like that, before it runs down and deals with the rest of the team that has continued to adjust to take angles. So Mercy can either go, I'm going to come in and res during this time while this team is stabilizing. Well, if this team is stabilizing, they're gonna run out and do it again, so no big deal. There's no chance for these guys to rotate away. That doesn't really work. This is just, okay, you're feeding us more ult charge, you're giving us your ult for a small sliver of a chance that this time Widow's gonna get the pick over here. This time Orisa and Bap are gonna get the pick over there. There's only 3 of them contributing to this somewhat recharged Brawl team going in here. That's not terribly likely. And these guys lose once the Brawl team is on top of them. And the Brawl team is not going to go, okay, we got the elimination, now let's wander over here to stabilize. No. They're going to go in nearby cover. They're maybe going to drop, but they can walk back up to deal with this sort of thing. So that's not really going to work. And if we wait until these guys have stabilized, recovered resources, well, now these guys are alive over here again, and it's going to take them a while to get here, but we can't res them, and this is already a decided match. And then finally, we move into Poke versus Brawl. Let's put Mercy in a Brawl comp. It sucks because it means your Brawl comp can't fit a Lucio, but let's do it. In some ways, Brawl comp wants to stack together more than a Poke comp does, more than a Dive comp does, at least before its dive. So, okay, maybe this makes sense. We'll put her here because it makes the mass res condition makes more sense. Okay, I'm good with that. So now we have this Poke team. It's going to try to soften up these angles. Obviously, there's a cart, and the cart management matters because there's Brawl teams that are in play here. So there's a cart, and maybe the Brawl team will at some point have to drop to contest the cart, something along those lines. Maybe Orisa's pushing the cart, whatever the case may be. But basically, this Poke team is chipping down this Brawl team as best it can like this. And eventually it's going to win, or the Brawl team is going to hide well enough. The Brawl team can absolutely hide well enough that they can't really be poked on, bait the aspect of the poke team to come in and then try to run them over. That's harder when they have a Mercy, no speed boost. Or they can go, hey, we're just going to hide as best we can from you until one of you goes to try to run over, get the cart, and then we'll run that over. And those are perfectly fine. They can play for the objective. That's fine. Again, hard without the Lucio, but we'll just ignore that for the sake of being generous to the Mercy team here. And eventually, assuming that they don't win, because if they win, it doesn't really matter. It's only when the mass res comes into effect that it matters. Then we get into a situation where, okay, maybe this poke team got an elimination or two. So they get, let's say, the May and, I don't know, the BAP. Okay, now we res this team. Yeah, that certainly is annoying. That certainly is annoying. But, you had to res after they got a couple eliminations because this poke team isn't really going to move in to finish you off before they get enough eliminations to be comfortable, and your res just factors in, just like Lamp factors in to the eliminations that they get before they walk in and take the fight. And you can say, oh, well, that means we can stall better. Yeah, you can stall better at the cost of not being able to run over teams that are here, at the cost of not having some AoE healing from Lucio, and really the cost of not having speed amp is pretty darn huge. And if you end up going, aha, no, we're here, we stopped the cart and we got eliminated, or maybe we're here and the fight happened and we got eliminated fighting Orisa, or you guys lost Orisa, but we lost 2 or 3 people, and now we want to res them. A poke team? A poke team is absolutely capable of destroying Mercy on the way in. Even more so than some of these other teams. In terms of these sightlines, just delete Mercy on the way in. Or, again, if they're in a place where we can actually get a mass res off, because that's what we're talking about, okay, now this team gets resed, and oh shoot, they're resed in the middle of the bad sightlines. That's not great. Now, again, this can evolve in a better way where, hey, the poke team has come in to actually brawl because they felt they had a big enough lead. Some of these heroes simply would never come in, but come in a little bit to brawl because they felt they had a bigger lead, and then the res happens, and now maybe, okay, we flip it and do things like that. But there still isn't a great situation, and again, you're trying to force Mercy into brawl. It's kind of like, that's silly, and we know it's silly, but it sort of fits her best in a win condition. I mean, the other option is, again, dive, where your team dives on their team and loses, and then you go in and res, or your team gets dove and loses. So those are the examples I wanted to go over here. And as you can see from these, it really doesn't work very well. And even in GM play, even Masters play, more GM play, you'd seen even before the Valkyrie work happened, teams understood that hide and seek Mercy wasn't very good because, wait, that means you're playing a 5v6. I'm not saying it absolutely never happened. It certainly happened in some GM games because, oh shoot, we don't have a better solution to their Grav Dragon and we're just going to lose, and people didn't really understand positioning and such back then. But today, when teams understand positioning, when people understand how to take lanes, how to take angles, well, if you're taking lanes and angles, you're probably going to find that hiding Mercy a lot more often than you would have in the past. And whoops, that's a problem because she can't really defend herself very well. But also, hey, if you're playing in a way that you can be mass resed, it's bad. Like, it is bad, and you had pretty much guaranteed you were going to lose the fight. Like, that's not a thing that you want to do. So, even before this happened, tempo reses were sort of the way to go, and tempo reses are fine, and some people would object to the Mercy change, saying they can't get reses faster by doing better because getting more ult charge doesn't get them more reses, and that much is true after they've reworked Valk again. The actual original version of Valk was silly broken. You could res someone, single person, then you could pop Valk to turn your res CD to refresh your res CD, so you could res another person, and then it put your res while you were in Valk on a short cooldown. So I don't remember if it was 10 or 15 seconds, but you could get another res off during your Valk like 10 seconds later. So it could be res, and then 10 seconds later, if you needed it, get another res, or 15 seconds later, or whatever it was. And Valk, I believe, was 20 seconds. We can look at the patch notes. We probably should look at the patch notes because we have them pulled up here. 20 seconds. It was 20 seconds. Resurrect is instantly reset when Valkyrie is activated and reduced to 10 seconds after the initial cast. So you could res if you had it off cooldown, Valk to get another res off. So if you went down 2, you could Valk and go res. And that, of course, was way better. That's not really what we're comparing it to. Anyone who thinks that the 20-second Valkyrie that had the 10-second res cooldown, as well as getting rid of the cooldown, as well as a bunch of other stuff here that was a bit better, and some of this has been nerfed. This was way better. Even modern Valk, which is not 20 seconds long, which does not modify your res timer, is still significantly better than old res was, especially when you factor in the ult charges that they cost, things like that. But that's what I really wanted to cover here. That said, I think some of you might have objections. I know there was some stance against the view that I take on this, and I know Mercy is a controversial subject at times. So again, I'm not saying that a it was a poor game decision from a standpoint of, hey, this doesn't make sense to be in the game to have mass res, but I am also saying, hey guys, like it didn't really, like mass res would not be powerful today. Like if mass res was back in the game, that wouldn't be some, oh my goodness, this is going to take over the game and be powerful and she's going to have a top tier support ult and it would be great. No, it would get used much like her ability gets used. She'd just be invulnerable while resing. That would sort of be the difference. But an ultimate to reverse one pick, that's not terrible. An ultimate to reverse one pick, which is what it would be most of the time, is not terrible by any means. An ultimate to get one pick is actually a pretty good reward. That said, it wouldn't quite be as simple as that either, because people die in positions that are hard to res, even if you're invulnerable while resing. Of then, are you going to get out? Are they going to be able to get out? Dive, for example, and Brawl both do good jobs of cutting off the ability to get reses off into place. Okay. Okay. There we go. So let's catch up here. Semitic says the community probably couldn't handle it coming back outside of PvE. Probably. Are you arguing that mass res would be bad in organized high level play or in general? Both. I'm arguing both. Because even though organized play might be the pinnacle of what you get to see in terms of Overwatch, even in regular play, the mechanics of the average player has gotten a fair amount better, as well as, it's not perfect, but the average player is much better at understanding taking space, taking angles than they were in 2016. So Mercy's reses would be much more of a single tempo res type things, which is fine, but she's definitely in a better state having that as an ability and Valk as her cooldown. Like that's definitely a better state than we're looking at when it comes to, hey, or a more powerful state than, hey, I can mass res, but not really. Really what I get is I'm invulnerable while I'm resing, but people can still eliminate me on the way in or out. Um, like that's really what it would be balanced against. And like, oh, also you get the second ability Valk that gives you the ability to toggle between damage and heals for any chunk of your team that is sitting together. Like way better. But yes, the increased mechanics that people have would mean that Mercy would get deleted more on the way in, on the way out. The greater understanding of angles that the ladder has, the greater just general understanding that even with res as it built over time of, okay, fine, we'll beat this team, then they'll res, then we'll just use another cooldown to take them down like Grav because they're all stacked. Even that, which is the least compelling of the reasons, was something that was building as mass res was in effect. It was like, wait, it's really not that big a deal. Yeah. Okay, I think it would still be powerful in silver, where every Reaper, Junkrat, McCree, Diva ult is a 5k. I review silver games, Mercedes, and that's not true anymore. Like every self-destruct is not a 5k in silver anymore. Like that's not the game. That's 2016, but you're sort of looking at in a time capsule there. Are there games where that happens? Absolutely. Are there some places in low bronze where that can happen? Yeah. But the days of, oh, this is just just throw a self-destruct without setting it up, without it being at the proper timing when the teams are meeting, without it being when you have a bunch of angle control. Wait, this doesn't sound like a silver game anymore. It not fulfilling those things, the 5Ks aren't going to come that often. And gold, it's harder to tell in plat because everyone else at once. I don't think most of those heroes were around when Mercy could 5-res. You don't think most of those heroes were around? Reaper, Junkrat, McCree, Diva, ult? Those were around. Oh, the heroes I put here? Yeah, I tried to use modern compositions because they're like fair and real compositions. I didn't want to put bad compositions on either side. So I put fairly real compositions. But yeah, it's true. When Mass Res was around, we didn't have BAP, we didn't have Sigma, we didn't have Ash, we didn't have Echo. Unfortunately, power creep means these heroes get used. Zergling Dance says, I never found 5-man res to be powerful back in Season 4-5. It was always more about using the immortality to survive for bringing 2 to 3 back max. Even now in low tiers, I think it would be bad. Yes. That's basically hitting it on the head, Zergling Dance. Using it for 1 to 2, more like, probably not 2 to 3. Your fight's probably pretty lost in most situations where you've lost 3 people. Even if you traded someone back and you're going to res those 3. But yeah, using it as a tempo situation to get about 2 people back, 1 to 2 people back. Um, and that became a juggle of like, do you wait to see if a second person is going to get eliminated, but before the first soul is back, do you get caught in that time? Do you miss your opportunity? That sort of thing. Even that became a juggle. And that time that you're waiting is more time for more people to get eliminated, for you guys to lose more space, for people to get eliminated in places that you're not doing it, for you to decide that you're not in the fight because, oh, do you want to Guardian Angel over there to heal yet? Do you need to hide yet? Like, what are you doing during there? But you've got the idea. Rez's best format was basically 1 to 2 person reses, and you have immortality, which fortunately means you're not getting slept, hooked, etc. while you're booped while you're trying to do the res to have it canceled, which is an upgrade over what you have now for reses. Otherwise, just easy to counter with an ult or just better positioning. Yep. I remember when they were removing it, and I wanted to save a 5-man highlight. Definitely on purpose. Lost a fight to do that because they just got better positioning. Exactly. And that's the problem you run into. It's like, well, we're gonna go in there to make them use an ult, and they recognize what you're doing. They recognize that they're in a 6v5, and they don't have to use ults to beat you. If you have to use ults to get them to use ults when you're trying to challenge them to a 5v6 to get them to use ults so that then you can get res, and they get the better positioning because they can take angles like this. You knew it, but what'd you highlight? There you go. Quacker says, I solo or do a res, mainly when she had it in the first place. It's to restore man advantage. 5-mans are like going for 5-man grabs. You lose while you're trying to set it up. Sure. So from the at release time, if you barely won the fight and finished it with an ult like a tire or something, that's where it's sucked to see everyone pop back up. Sure. Where you're too weak to do anything about most of the enemy coming back, but that was really the worst of it, if I remember correctly. Right, no, it felt bad. Like, it felt bad from a perspective of, oh, it's a messy fight, and oh, we won, but there's only 2 of us standing, and we just used our tire, and now they get rezzed, and there's 6 of them alive, and oh no! Like, okay, that's really not going to be as much of an issue today, though, because, like, again, I'm not saying that people never lose team fights when it's a 6v5 and they're the 6, but it's only gotten better in terms of converting that man advantage into actually winning. But in lots of barely won fights, someone using an ultimate can make a huge difference. But yeah, from a gameplay perspective, it made a lot of people very salty. That it did. Do I think Res was any more powerful on 2CP? The ability to turn desperate stalls into full-on team fights because mercilessly respawned always felt awful. Yeah, I could make a small exception for that. Coming back and hitting the res in 2CP where you'd all been stalling, especially before the increased spawn timers had been added, or even after the increased spawn timers have been added because their soul will still exist, which means it could still be tagged for a res. Yeah, I could make an exception there of, hey, it is even more annoying on 2CP last point stall. That said, most of the time when you actually win, when you actually finish the map on 2CP, it's a pretty clean win for the attackers, and you're just fighting into stall. And if they all res, you're still in pretty okay shape. But I agree, it is more powerful in that specific situation. It was frustrating. Gibraltar the worst could res from under the floor. Yeah, well, that's a map design issue. How many times was Reaper fixed for teleporting down to 10 locations? Sure. Showed up every patch? Sure. Mercedes says there was apparently a thing where negative win rate Mercy one trick ponies got boosted by the SR system because they had high res stats. Maybe. But we don't get to know how performance-based SR works, generally speaking, and I don't know if those stories were true or if that was people were frustrated with Mercy, frustrated with Res, frustrated with New Valk when that came out. I don't know if that was just a case of people were frustrated and they liked to blame Mercy, much like they liked to blame Diva for like, oh, this player isn't playing any good. They must be boosted from having played Mercy or Diva, because Diva had a wild state where she had 400 armor, 4 seconds of defense matrix, a very, very powerful version of Diva, effectively. And you had some of those things in the early world where it was like, okay, but is that really what happened? Or are you just in it? In some cases it was, but, or is this just a case of you're looking to be like, oh, this person must be boosted because I'm annoyed that I lost and I'm trying to displace blame? Like, that's what half of your teammates do in ladder games, guys. That hasn't changed. Zergling Dance says, I think that was exaggerated. A lot of the examples people showed were of people that had just finished their placements. Uh, Guest Temp couldn't wait at all. It's a good subject. I mean, I waited. I waited until after the Atlanta game, the Atlanta shot game. Yeah, Mercy's got too little SR for wins in one patch, and they fixed it and gave them too much in the next patch. I'm going to need a citation there. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I vaguely remember something along those lines, but I probably need to see that again. That was years ago. Heard Mercies used to let people get eliminated so they could get a good mass res. Yeah, they did. No, they absolutely did. That was a thing that happened. Elark says, hey, Temporal, can we get any predictions on the Somber Bastion reworks being shown tomorrow? Even general things like direction they're going to take them? I mean, they'll want to make Sombra less CC heavy, but like that's hard for a character that they've made the identity of a hacker. So either you make her CC less powerful, and maybe it like only goes after one move or something, or it only goes after more active things and stops taking away passives like Lucio's wall ride. Or you make hacking do something different, like she's still a hacker, but now hacker does this different thing where it's, I don't know, changes the score. Like it can't actually do that, but something completely different. Yeah, hard to know. Bastion, I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have to completely rework Bastion's character if you want to change his identity, because his identity is sort of as a gate that you may not pass until you and your team. And yes, I know it's ladder, and they're trying to make it more solo, more independent. Understand, wait, okay, we have to solve him. We can't just fight him on medium-long sight lines and just let him burn us. We have to actually have solutions. Take angles, angles. Yeah, it's like they're trying to teach the game there to beat him. But that's okay. If they were to rework him, I mean, you could make turret mode significantly weaker. You could make turret mode significantly weaker and make his robot form better. But is he really Bastion at that point? That's sort of like Sombra. Okay, she's a hacker. She's a silence character. If you take that away, does the identity even make sense? I'll be curious. It's a good point. Almost no Widows benefited from the 5-man res. True. Also, who wins? I mean, are we getting to spoilers if I read that? By the time my chat loads in, I'm not going to read that. No on your diagram. Yeah, Sigma Ball, Sombra, Brig, none were release heroes. Yeah. I get it. Nor was Orisa, actually. Okay. Or Echo. Yeah, but that's fine. We don't need to name them all. Sombra support is the only way hack stays as it is. Could be. Probably won't, though. Though they will probably go some boring direction of making Sombra Tracer but different. I think that's more likely. They'll have to make hack do something completely different. Maybe it'll be tied again. It wouldn't be wild to tie. Okay, maybe she has something Infosight-ish because that's an ability that she has, and I don't know. We'll see. Like maybe hack just becomes she can see that person. It's an instant ability, and she can see that person through walls for 10 seconds, regardless of their health. Who knows? Things like making her hack do more damage, plus reveal to make her. Could be. You could make hack sort of like Discord in that sense, but you just make it for her. They said they tried that, but it felt terrible. That makes sense. Yeah. It would be very challenging to balance that in a way that it made sense as people's aim tiers level of aim differed. Though with as little as the dev game plays the game, wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of hack and gave Sombra Roadhog's hook and called her fixed. Probably not. Probably not. Only if they gave them the original hook that would hook around walls and yoink people around that had quite clearly broken line of sight before by the time the hook got to them. The direction Bastion should go is making him a true transformation character and making Tank Mode a cooldown and making his ult enable all forms. Maybe. Like to see him be a lot less oppressive, and Hanzo too while they're at it. Yeah, I'd be good with that. Hanzo's just kind of hung out below the radar, quietly powerful since he lost Scatter Arrow. Okay. I think that's what's going to do it. I didn't expect this one to take too long, and it didn't. We didn't have anything to read through and review because I wasn't going to read through the Discord discussion. But if you guys are curious about the Discord discussion, you guys can join my Discord in the description below. In there, you can see what we chat about. You can see the coaching. You can see when I go live if you want to become a watcher, so you can see when we're doing videos like this and be here to comment on them, to be in chat, to be like, no, Temporal, you're wrong, or to ask questions because you want to pick a former contender coach's brain, all that stuff. Okay, that's going to do it. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Temporal out.